Hey, good evening. It's 6:30. I'm going to call to order meeting number 1880 of the East Windsor Planning and Zoning Commission. We are here live in the John Daly Room of the Town Hall, as well as on the Zoom platform. We have a quorum. We have four regular members, as well as I'd like to welcome our newest alternate, Mr. Wayne Cherry. Wayne, I'm going to ask you this evening if you would sit in on any discussions and any votes that may take place this evening.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, we have no added agenda items.
Oh, no.
Okay, there is no legal notice. So we are at the public participation portion of our meeting. Does anyone have anything they'd like to comment on that is not on tonight's agenda? Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, my only comment is the publication of the agenda. Like this week, it didn't go out until yesterday at like 11 o'clock, if you're on the email list to get it. So is there any rules around how early that agenda should just go out? Because it just seems like it doesn't give people very much time to see what's going on in the meeting. That was my own.
I can answer that.
Okay,
We used to try to post the Thursday before. And then if applications came in between posting the agenda, they would get added at the meeting. We have 24 hours in advance is our deadline that we have to post the agendas. And so we do that in order to allow for applicants to come in up until that 24-hour time. For instance, we added just before posting a new agenda that's going to be received. So that's why we do it. Saves us for not having adequately noticed on an agenda if something gets added and people didn't see it on an agenda.
It just seems like it doesn't give folks enough time. I mean, you could always, just a suggestion, or what it's, you could always post on Thursday with the note that there may be other items, coming on between now and the meeting. So if so, it will be reposted. Well, only my thoughts, because otherwise people don't see it till the day before. So.
hey, anyone else? Yes, sir.
Bob Light from the Broadbrook Village of East Windsor. I just want to comment on the input here because this meeting has been run like the last two hearings that I've attended, very open. The dialogue is not required to go back and forth like that, and I commend you again for that. Another item I'd like to see is pledge allegiance to the flag when we start the meetings. In addition to that, I've been doing a little bit of homework and going to the Planning and Development Department site, and I found out that what if we really want to get involved, there's a lot of things we can do if we are computer literate. And one of those is to give feedback to the Planning and Development Department. We can critique them every day if we choose to. The other thing that I want to repeat that I brought up in the last public session was that this is a thankless, painless job that this committee does, and we don't always agree with them personally. We're often at odds with some of the things they do. But if we're really interested in having a say in what happens in the development of our town, we need to fill. Thank you, Wayne Cherry, for coming forward, being an alternate. If I'm not mistaken, you still have 2 vacancies for alternates. Oh, it's just one now? Good. So take an interest, My personal opinion, we've got the best form of town government of any 169 towns can have. It's town meeting form of government. That's the most democratic way of being able to express yourself and have things said and follow through that they'd be taken in your direction. Thank you.
I got one more. Stan Plesky, Bryce Street. Following her comment, it may not be a bad thing. By the end, obviously, the town hall then works a half a day and it's Friday. So maybe by the end of Friday, post. This is the proposed agenda. It doesn't have to say permanent agenda, just proposed. And then boom, Monday, You go ahead and hit your deadline, that way you go. Because I did find it a little struggling and looking at it, say if it's at coffee time at work, it's not there. Lunchtime, doing something else, it's there, so. Thank you very much.
Anyone else? Is there anyone online that would like to speak on a topic that's not on tonight's agenda? Okay. Moving on, our next item is the approval of minutes. We have the minutes from meeting 1879 that was held on August 27th. Does anyone have any corrections or alterations to the minutes? Nope.
I'm going to abstain. I listened up to the online recording, but that's not the same as being here.
Okay. Did you find-
I had just a couple. And they're technical corrections, line 222. The criteria, eligibility and boundaries, section 87.3, it should be 817.
17.3?
Yeah. And then there's reference to the plan of conservation and development, it's 2016.
Which line is that? Oh,
Sorry.
24.
2024.
2016.
2016. So that's line 224, development from 2016.
Okay,
That's it.
okay. No one else has any other corrections? I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve meeting minutes from August 27th, 2024, meeting number 1879. As amended.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the minutes. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Stacy. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Abstentions?
I'm abstaining.
Thank you. Minutes are approved. We received one application this week. It's PZ 2023-14. The owner applicant is Rice Street Business Park LLC, is requesting a special use permit and use of a large building to be used as a museum and a meeting place for a private club located on map 67, block 48, lot 24, zone M1. This application will be heard at a future meeting.
I do have the packets here. I'll hand before you guys leave. So you have.
Okay, we have no performance bonds, actions, permit extensions, or road acceptance. So we'll move on to our continued public hearing. PZ 2024-12, Town of East Windsor is requesting a text amendment to zoning regulation section 817, Commercial Development District, PCD.
I have a few things to hand out to the commissioners. We received our comments from our CROG referral. So this, we started the discussion on this last meeting and I wasn't here, so I apologize for that. I'm sorry? And had I been able to attend, I would have discussed one of the issues that came up about the eligibility requirements in the state roads because it was the language ended up being broader than what was intended for the expansion. And fortunately, I was unable. So we made some edits to the text. Mike, can you put up
Which one?
eligibility language? Can you make it really big? What, and I'll get to the rationale. The reason why I wanted to take these regulations, they've been in place since March of 22. And maybe I'll ask you to put up the map from the P O C D. So it's a little hard to see the development area on the North Road. But when we passed these regs in 22, it applies to eligibility on 140 in the salmon colored area. And then the yellow, which is Route 5 frontage. And
Well, one second.
these guys, yeah. What's been happening is folks are coming in, having conceptual conversations about things they might like to do on certain properties that are just outside. And it actually, all those parcels, there's maybe 4 of them that people come in and talk about a lot and nothing happens, are in Warehouse Point. They're the larger parcels up by the highway. And folks come in and they pitch different ideas. And many times I've come to this point, if they could apply this planned development district, they could get the mixed use and bring something really good to the town. So that's my motivator. That's why I wanted to increase the eligibility. And so it would be adding this section. If we can look at what that means for how many parcels would be eligible. There's, as I look at it, and I look at today, but there's 7 parcels in here that are over the 10 acres that are required to be eligible. One of them is the sewage treatment plant. I believe this one over here belongs to Eversource. And then the state of Connecticut has this one. And those aren't even, of course, people aren't coming in talking about it. But these parcels here, here, and here, there's, very frequently, we'll see, when I say that, for East Windsor, very frequently, I will be talking to developers about ideas for development, mixed use type development on those parcels. And so this is where we're proposing to expand the eligibility. So one of the benefits of that, if there's more residential or folks to move into Warehouse Point to help foster that village and tap into the transit-oriented development with the train station being built. In East Windsor, that one of our selling points, I'll say, for what we have to offer is our proximity to 91 and the airport, and now the new train station that's going to be built. So it's prime for bringing in something nice and bringing more people to town, and that's the spot. So, and with that in mind, I would say that what we're proposing is in alignment with the plan of conservation and development for Warehouse Point, for transit-oriented development. We've added a section on architectural requirements that's more of an appealing architecture. It'll be boxy building to be something to foster that pedestrian type village feel. So the other change.
Why don't we put it up and we'll just, you want to go over the highlighted areas then?
Sure.
Language change?
To 817.3C.
Yeah, so this is the new eligibility language up there. We got paper, so.
And this is the big change.
This is the big change,
Yes.
eligibility change. So we have the Route 5 corridor we talked about and the North Road business corridor. And in those sections, the parcels have to be at least 4 acres. We've added that the planned commercial district may be applied within areas not specified up above in this section, as long as they are 10 acres in size, have frontage on a state road, and they're located in the Warehouse Point Village District, as shown on the most recent Plan of Conservation and Development, future land use map.
Do you want to show them on the map? It's not coming up Phelps Road. It's got to be in the Warehouse Point District
We can put that.
only.
we can put that up.
I think we get what you're saying, but sometimes the audience doesn't
Yeah,
understand.
the land use map up. Yeah.
Strictly that blue area there that we're adding.
There.
Yeah.
The only thing that I would add that is these parcels were specifically excluded when we removed the third zone from the Warehouse Point zoning. Remember, we
Yes.
originally proposed 3.
Right.
Then we had some feedback from some of those property owners that said,
We don't want to be,
We don't want to be in that zone, yeah.
so we shortened the zone along
Yeah.
that portion of the road.
The Warehouse Point District
Right.
is way down here.
And so
For the
those,
outer.
that whole
Really
swath
small.
was, right. So it picks up that piece which was pulled out of the Warehouse Point.
So when you really look at the logic on these zones, so the 140 area stops, of course, at the backside of 5. And then it kind of stranded the
Yeah,
opportunities on it.
so it's just the blue zone.
the remainder of the changes will apply to all the zones, correct? Though as far as the commercial development zones, the previous existing ones,
The other section.
the architectural requirements?
Yes. And so, it's page 9. So a new section was added about, building design, facade, and articulation. So articulation should be incorporated to emphasize architectural elements such as windows, balconies, entries, etc., to divide larger buildings into smaller identifiable spaces. Building facades and elevation facing the public street should be designed with a minimum transparency of 20%. Buildings should be designed to incorporate mixed roof lines with dormers, gables, and similar variations in lieu of a flat roof. Architectural elements should include details to enhance visual interest, include material and color variations. This particular section, the CROG really appreciated to make it more vibrant. And then in the housing section, we've kept the first portion of that, which is if the proposed development includes housing units, density limits shall be based upon the capacity of public water and or sewer or the limitations of on-site wastewater management or well capacity. And then we added projects served by water and sewer shall not exceed a density of 10 units per developable acre.
Project not served.
Not served. Not served. Did I say served?
Yes.
Yeah, sorry, not served. So those are the 3 sections that we're proposing change. And you saw the limits. And parcels that are over 10 acres. Share those with you. Entertain questions. Yeah.
My recollection is we spent multiple years working on a plan for Warehouse Point and how to bring some vibrancy to Warehouse Point because the train station is just across the river. And it is a good opportunity because you can see the new development in Windsor Locks. But we weren't seeing the new development on the East Windsor side of the river there. And the intent of this is to foster new development and rejuvenation of Warehouse Point. Should there be a developer interested in taking a parcel or parcels and doing something more innovative there.
Do you have any questions?
I don't.
Jim?
Is there any open space involved with this? If you get housing put in there, multiple housing, you're gonna have any kind of,
Open space.
Not until developer comes in.
well,
Right?
It's all gonna be based on what they propose there.
Yeah.
But this,
It doesn't have the same like 30% type requirements that other sections have for residential.
There are some landscaping requirements in the existing reg. The open space set aside will only come in if they're for subdivision. These are all kind of existing lots, but we do limit coverage, so you can't, under the current regulations, which we're not proposing any changes to, you can't just develop property line to property line. Those are existing, that we're not proposing any changes to that, but I think it's further back in the section.
you know what I'm getting at?
But wasn't this intended for a developer to come in and go through an iterative planning process
Yes,
with the commission and the town, as opposed to just come in with a, I'll say subdivision plan and say, this is what I want to do to meet the regs. This was to get a more creative kind of development in that, I'll say, urban core of Warehouse Point.
yeah, it's a master plan process. So the first step is something that's less refined to allow the commission to give some feedback before they've spent all the time and energy engineering and designing buildings to go exactly here. And so you may say, we want you to, we really would prefer you to stay away from the rear of the property. And so we want you to site these buildings much closer to the road than normally so that it matches the contextual standard of where all the other houses on that street are and keeps it away from something in the back. You have a little bit more flexibility so that you can, extract sort of the best layout for the site, which may change parcel to parcel.
But the plan had nice streetlights and nice streetscape, so it would be walkable.
yeah. It's,
But that's in the Warehouse Point plans.
it's not in the text. Yeah,
No, but we have the Warehouse Point plan that this
Yes.
is.
Yes.
We would be looking at with a developer saying, we're looking for this kind of look and feel.
So, right, the concept plans would have the general location of the proposed uses, existing and proposed footprints, proposed public and private streets, sidewalks, pedestrian walkways, rights of way, landscaping plan, including location of proposed buffers, information regarding visions of water, sewer, drainage. So on that higher level, those items would be considered and public hearing process, the land, the district, and
But the discussions would be open to the public and, planning and zoning commission meeting, so there would be opportunity for people to know what was going on if a developer came forward.
anyone else have any questions? Okay. Do you,
Let's right there. Yeah.
okay, so this is a public hearing, so I'm gonna open it up for comments. Gail, you're first.
Really?
Is this microphone on? Can you hear me?
It's Ken.
Okay. All right, so my name is Gail Boisvert. My husband Lester and I have lived at 117 Scantic Road since 1976. I spoke at the last meeting and I also submitted a statement of opposition asking you to vote no on the text amendment, the way it was originally written. So I realize a change has recently been made, which I've looked at, and I'd like to speak to that. This was the addition to the text amendment that specified we're just talking about Warehouse Point. So I get that. So when I first read the change, I was like, whew, okay, that puts my neighborhood out of this danger area. But you know, I really care about East Windsor and I care about the future and how it grows. It needs to grow. I'm not saying it shouldn't grow, but it needs to grow carefully. And so I did become concerned. I looked at the map of Warehouse Point Village that you put up there. And I said, why is it just at this village and it's 10 acres of land? To me, that seemed odd. So I checked the map. There's really only, and I think you alluded to this, there's only 3 parcels I found. I don't count the electric company or whatever, but there's 3 parcels zoned that are really in that map that I found. I could be wrong. One was a B1 for 34 acres. That's a pretty hefty size. Another one was a B2 for 30 acres. And the last one I found, it's actually landlocked. It's 17 acres, 17.74. It's zoned M1, but if you connected it through some kind of agreement or purchase of a property, you could get it to have access on 140. So then I'm back to what is driving this specific change? We only have 3 properties that look like they're in play there. So you kind of explained that people come to you, but that's a problem I have with what is the direction of the office here in town for the town, the building, the planner, is people come, I have a piece of property, it's zoned a certain way, I want to do something different, how do I get around it? And writing new amendments to the current zoning process, to me, that's a slippery slope. This is not just a little amendment. This is significant, allowing somebody to do something totally different with their property currently than what it's zoned. So once they get that change here, then they can just move ahead with their big plan under that and all the rules and all the previous rules for their land no longer apply. So I don't think this is something that should be taken lightly and just a vote. Let's hear what a few people have to say. And then we vote on this and we've changed, you know, it sets a really bad precedent to me because the next person who comes along and has a piece of property and they want to do something different where they are, okay, well, we've already been down that road. So let's just make another text amendment. And my one big concern with that is you've added that village. Okay, that works for now. It works for me, obviously. Well, tomorrow or 3 months or 6 months or a year from now, somebody from Scantic Village comes forward or somebody from Broadbrook Village comes forward or Melrose Village. And they say, hey, you did it for them in Warehouse Point. What you do for one, you have to do for everybody. So that is another big concern when I look down the road and make sure that we aren't doing things that set really bad precedents. So I'll just follow up or end up with, I'm still back to, I don't really know how many people know about what's going on with some of these amendments, something like this size. It's not chickens, it's not cars, which apparently are very important to people here, and I get that. But when you write, I'm just going to make this amendment, and somebody said, if you told them I'm putting a 300-unit multifamily complex, I'm putting a change in that will allow them to do that down in Warehouse Point, you might have a few more people interested in hearing what's going on and what this would actually allow to happen to Warehouse Point in the future. I applaud we want to make it more vibrant, but are it's just a process, I think it takes time, and I think it takes a lot more consideration than just a quick vote on a one-line text amendment. I will say I applaud the changes for the architectural, because I think that's a really forward thinking and to get more beauty into the town, and I totally agree with that one. So I just want to thank you again for all your time, and the commission, I know, works hard and doesn't have an easy job, but thank you very much. And I know that morally and ethically, you'll do the right thing. Thank you.
Mr. Anderson?
Paul Anderson, 89 Main Street, Broadbrook. I wasn't sure what I was gonna have to say tonight, but in the package, I read Mark Barbieri's letter questioning the need for this as opposed to the TZ5 zone. And hearing the explanation tonight, I see there's a difference. So I don't have a direct problem with that by itself. But I would like some help. In chapter 5, business and industrial districts, we have some charts. And I was trying to compare what we're doing along with what already exists. Okay, so page 41 has permitted uses in business and industrial districts. And there's a few charts, and they're all fine, except there's no description as to what a blank space represents. Now, I'm gonna guess, and you can correct me, that if it's blank, it's not permitted. Is that a fact? Okay. But it doesn't say that anywhere. Not that I could see. Okay, so
for firing teachers or laying off people from here in the town hall. That just doesn't make any sense. So I would ask us all to put our heads together because we're getting some good dialogue back and forth between our citizens that are concerned and the board and commission here and the new members. And that's just try and get some new business into this town that conforms, that doesn't take all the homework to change the zoning regulations. Thank you.
So I think it's gonna mute, but no, the speaker.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think. You accidentally hit the mute button. It mutes the.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
We're good, just.
Okay.
Can we zoom it off?
No, they're-
Help it out. I'm still-
Thank you, everybody, but it does. Yeah, just hit it.
Yeah,
My apologies.
we're not hiding anything.
If you didn't get mine, I'm not running anything anyway.
Dan Pileski.
All right, Stan Plesky, Rice Street, Broadbrook. I got a couple, obviously, I apologize to the board. I did find the map that lists the rural area. List villager area, rural areas, non-rural areas, non-residential areas. It is there. The thing that I probably got caught with is the fact I looked at this before it was actually posted. And with that being, I'm scrambling here a little bit. I looked at, from my view, sitting in a seat, it looked like number 1, North Main. And that was supposed to be a, Eversource area. That along North Water Street really looks like where
I was gonna-
Irish Farms is.
We're gonna put a map. There you go.
It's farmed.
Yeah, that looks like where that's,
Owned by-
almost looks like that's where Starvish Farms is right there. I never knew that piece to be a, piece of Eversource. So that was news to me there. I'm assuming that if it was, I bet you'd have some real happy campers. And with that 10 units per acre, I don't know if anybody on the board has driven from Windsor Locks to Warehouse Point with the beautiful road, even with the, I'll call it semi-permanent road construction. State's planning is not, I could not see myself living in apartments, say in that piece of property. And you'd have to commute with a car because it's, there's no good ways to put it into truth what kind of a show it really is when you go to drive through there anytime that it's the time there to go to work. It's just rugged. I looked at where you just brought it up is I think number 3 was state land, if I'm correct. That was where the, number 3.
State receiving home stand.
State receiving home, okay, yep, all right. Well, then we have 4, 5, and 6, that's right on the dome. So in my term of on ZBA, we were to bring a Lowe's in there coming off of 4 and 5. Those 2 pieces of property are gonna come in. They're also going to connect into number 6. But I urge the board to take a look back because there was an issue. We approved it on the ZBA to be able to put a Lowe's in there, or at least that's what it was perceived to be. And there is an issue with the zoning and how the dome was put in and it was run through zoning. It got, my memory is correct, it got kaboo because it has to do along with all that blue ditch there. So I would urge the board to take a look back and just dot your i's and cross your t's as an objective observer and make sure that it is what it is before you go ahead and vote on it. And I really, if we're gonna do density, 10 units, I'd really love to see, instead of in lieu, of being able to buy open space somewhere else. That the neighbors would have open space between I'll call it apartment complex. I know Mill Pond's worked out really well. And then I have to go to the last one. So she alluded to, by doing this in that area, you're setting legal precedents throughout the town of somebody else coming in to say, hey, I want to be next. I'm out of Melrose. I'm on Scannick. I'm in, and I'm glad to see it went up to 10 acres and it's been taken off of State Road. But even in my drive here or my drives home, you can't recreate farmland. And being a close victim of that solar farm, it freaking hurts. I don't know how else well to see. Land that you grew up on, land if you've worked, land you've plowed, and it's no longer, you can't eat solar and you can't eat an apartment. I realize Route 5 has been pretty much auction land going up through there. And our hands are tied with there unless those pieces of property come up, we have stuff to do. And I understand the idea, but I urge the board to take it slow, dot your i's and cross your t's, and really take a good look at that number 6 property there, because there was an issue from my recollection, and that goes back a few years ago. So somewhere between probably 2006 and 2012 is when we had made, I'd served 2 terms in there. And take a look at that, if you could, please. Thank you for your service.
Yagloff?
Okay, so Keith Yagaloff, Depot Street. First, I want to thank you all for your service. Everything, the scope has changed, obviously. So the concerns have changed. But Gail and I were on the same wavelength before. We're still sort of on the same wavelength, and I just want to tell you some feedback or comments. In no particular order. First, the CROG letter I thought was pretty disappointing because it didn't address the overlay shifts onto other areas in town. All it really talks about are the design features. And I thought they're supposed to provide feedback for you and for the community. And I just was really disappointed because it didn't even address any of the issues about overlay on other parts of town and state roads, and didn't pick up on any of the concerns that we had as residents when we came in. So in the future, when I see CROG letters, and I suggest if you see CROG letters, maybe just look at them and really ask whether or not they're answering the questions or not, because this letter didn't answer the questions that should have been answered. The second thing is I noticed the Warehouse Point Village District is kind of landlocked, which is good because it doesn't create this problem with the old one, with the rural areas that could expand or the map could change anytime. And so now you're kind of a landlocked area. So I think that's a good thing because we know it's not going to change in the future because the map will change. You can't change the Warehouse Point Village District by expanding it into the river or anywhere. So that's a good thing. That's a safety net. And you did listen to our concerns, obviously, is really important. So one of the things that you folks asked for last time that we asked for, and I'm talking about generically, was a map showing each of the individual parcels. I heard the planner say tonight that she has a map, but it wasn't posted.
Said it several times up on the
Is
screen.
that the one that shows the individual parcels?
Yes.
Is that the one that was online?
Yes.
Okay, then I stand corrected.
Well, one online was,
Yeah, that's the one online.
this one was
That was not online,
together for discussion.
right?
I have copies posted.
So I'd like to,
Wanna-
the reason for having that map available to the public to be able to see was that individual owners that might be affected or residents in the area should have been able to see on the map what this text amendment was going to do. It applied, previously it was going to cover a lot of areas in town. Now it's covering Warehouse Point Village District, but the same general sort of philosophical concern is there that those people that are there have a right to know, especially if they're not in a commercial district right now, and there could be future changes. The other thing is, do we ask for, members of the public ask for information about who are the developers coming in? Because, and I think you should know too, we all should know what kind of projects are being proposed for this area, because then you can weigh that into the question and we can weigh that into our concerns about what's going to happen. Because if these developers are coming in asking for a solution and the text amendment is a solution, there's a pretty good likelihood that some of them are going to come in for an application. And so, I'm concerned about low to moderate income housing, high density housing. I know that there are a lot of proposals out there across the state for low to moderate income mixed use housing with commercial. And what happens is, if you don't know already, I'm sure you do, they build the residential and then they go back to the boards and they say, sorry, guys, the economy's changed and we no longer have a market for commercial and we're bailing out on the commercial. And they got what they wanted, which was low to moderate income housing. Not against low to moderate income people. The problem is housing is usually subsidized. It's federally subsidized, state subsidized. It's often poor quality. They don't charge enough in the rents to do maintenance on the property. And in 20 years, kind of like the Mill Pond properties, they either jack up the rents so they're no longer affordable, which is what's happening over there, or it's affordable housing and they don't have enough money to do maintenance because they don't have a maintenance plan. So we're end up with I don't think anyone in the Warehouse Point Village District would like to have high density housing or low quality that just gets overlaid without a zoning change. And the problem is this is really serious, as Gail said, and I know it's serious, because this is not a zoning change. This is an overlay by text amendment changing other zones to be overlaid by this commercial zoning, this commercial district. And I don't know if I would like a little clarification, because I heard that they still have to come before you, and that's what you said, and they have to, but I think they get it as a right. I mean, as long as they can show that they meet the criteria for the overlay district, as long as it's reasonable and they can show that, residents don't have a right to say, don't do it because it's been approved. I think I think they give it as a right, as long as they meet the criteria of the overlay district. I didn't see anything in the text of the overlay district that says that planning and zoning could reject an application because it's inconsistent with the POCD, because the zoning overlay district is consistent with the POCD by definition. So anyway, I'm concerned, and I know you guys are going to address it. I think you guys are doing a great job. You made those changes on the last set of text amendments. I thought they were really important changes, and I appreciated them. And I know that this change tonight, not tonight, but the change in the last week that we saw with the new language is such a substantial change from what it could have been, that, like I said, everything is sort of like nuanced now. It's not so, I mean, I think the people in Warehouse Point Village District should be concerned, especially if they're next to the residential, farmland or residential properties right now, and someone could come in with a high density housing development or another mixed use project, and then it's not zoned for it, but now it's allowed because it's in the commercial. It's because it's in the district. So our concerns. I know you guys are going to do the right thing, and I respect all of you. Honestly, you guys, you made it so comfortable for people to come before the Planning and Zoning Commission. I've been at a number of your meetings. You've made it comfortable because nobody's argumentative. Everybody's open-minded. You're responding to people's concerns, and that's exactly what I appreciate, is the ability to stand up here and to feel heard and just comfortable in doing this. So thank you.
That is everyone that signed up to speak. Is there anyone who would still like to speak? Okay. Yes, please.
Evening. Hi, I'm Lisa Madsen. I live at 36 Barbara Hill Road. I'm here and representing those of us that live in Broadbrook, and as some of you know, my house abuts solar. Oh, sorry, my house abuts solar. My name is Lisa Madsen. I live at Barbara Hill Road, and my concern is that we are going to set a precedence, like everybody else stated. I'm concerned about the land behind me, which is currently not being developed to solar, but it is sited to be solar. I am concerned that whatever you set into zoning will be a precedence for the land behind me and for those along the corridor of Rockville Road. We had no voice when it came down to solar in the area, and I'm concerned that whatever you decide now for the Warehouse Point will set precedents for those of us in the Broadbrook Village. It's been very disheartening, needless to say. And I'd like to also say that I thank you all for your volunteering and for being cooperative and listening to those of us that are, that have fears, because, things were enacted by Connecticut Siding that we had no say in. So, again, thank you for all that you do, and thank you for taking the time to consider what's going to happen to Warehouse Point. I am concerned about low-income housing. We have many of that already. We have paid our dues. And again, I'm worried that it's going to set a precedence behind me and down the street from me over on Rockville Road. I'm concerned that that you won't deny the appropriate petitions that are before you for zoning. And I just want you to protect the farmland quality of our town and for those of us that have lived here for quite some time. So thank you for, considering, my viewpoint and my fears, because I had no say about what's going to happen behind my house. And if that solar petition gets denied, I do not want it to become something of a commercial land that's going to be set precedence by whatever you decide in Warehouse Point. So again, thank you for listening to my fears. I appreciate it. And also one thing too, I know the casino has not been installed and it's still tied up. I do not want a casino, another one recited within Broadbrook or any other village. It brings a lot of crime, and I'm not sure what you can do within the zoning to stop that, but I myself am against it. Thank you very much. That's my main concern. Thank you.
Anyone else? Is there anyone online that would like to speak on this application? Okay. Okay, I wonder if can we address some of these things that were brought up? Or do we need to do some research and get better responses?
Well, I heard concerns about precedent.
That's one of my,
I
yeah,
don't, there's a couple things. We have rural residential areas. We have the POCD revision coming up with workshops for folks, right? I don't see the same thing as, but each village is gonna become a metropolis. So I don't, why would we do that?
well, I'm just first to address, as long as I've been on this commission, I've never heard anybody come say, well, you allowed this here, you have to allow it for us. Everything is a case by case basis.
And these regs, they make the parcels eligible. The applicant or developer will have to come to this commission seeking permission to land the planned commercial development.
So these changes give nothing as of right.
Correct. It's a zone change.
You have to,
They're eligible.
to come in for another process to apply for a zone change, and then it still has to go through public hearings and everything
Yes.
else. So,
Add to that on the precedent concept.
sure.
I feel like we spent multiple years working on Warehouse Point. And this is the outcome of the design we were talking about for Warehouse Point. So the precedent that this would apply elsewhere in town doesn't seem, there's a plan, there's years worth of work. To say it's gonna happen everywhere, I just don't see how you can make that connection.
So I'd like to know who was the driver behind this? What applicant, was there any applicant that came in?
We don't have an application.
Well, I understand that, but.
People come in and say, we're interested in this parcel, we're thinking, maybe we want to have a store and a medical office, or maybe we want to lay something, they come in and they pitch ideas. And yes, some of them have apartments, some of them have mixed use where they have some sort of variable housing so that multiple ages could live in the same area. And then maybe a grocery store to support that. So we've seen different ideas get floated. Different developers. Could I give you names off the top of my head? No, I really don't. I don't have, we sit and we meet and we talk, and either we hear back or we don't after we have a conversation with them. And that's the kind of thing where, I'd be thinking, boy, if they were eligible for this, there'd be an opportunity to bring something, special to the area. That's where it came from. There's nobody waiting in the wings that, oh, get me that change. If someone were going to come in and they really wanted something and we didn't have this in place, they could come in with a text change, an amendment. So why,
And they've done that before.
right. Right.
The only thing that I would add is these parcels are not none of these parcels have development now, but the assumption that that's the intent or how they would remain. Most of this land is zoned M1. There's parts of it that are zoned B2. But I think we can't restate enough that this change doesn't allow anything. This simply means that if somebody within one of these few parcels was interested in pursuing the planned commercial zone, they could come in and ask you through the public hearing zone change process. It doesn't allow anything as of right. It doesn't allow anything by special permit. A zone change would still have to occur. It simply means the parcel is eligible for them to come in and ask you the question. But the other thing that's different about the planned commercial, which the regs currently are not set up for, and planned commercial requires, is mixed use. So someone's not going to come in and use the planned commercial district to build a 1 million square foot warehouse. They're not going to come in to put in 5,000 apartments, even if it were allowed, because the purpose is for mixed use. For projects to be viable now with construction costs, utility costs, taxes, et cetera, you need a diversity of uses to make that function sort of work. And our regulations now are not really set up to look at that. So there's a little bit of a difference there, but someone could come in tomorrow and they could put under those, 3 of those parcels, manufacturing, heavy industrial. It's allowed today, just like the Lowe's. So the alternative to this is nothing. It would be the B1 or B1, B2 and M1. And one of the things that we kind of look at is if you have multiple projects or multiple parcels that have come in and are trying to figure out what to do, you don't want to amend the regulations for a single project. We're all in agreement. So when you have several projects that are all looking, many of them were watching what happened with warehouse building. And again, because the zone was constricted and these parcels weren't included, we started to talk about what the alternative could be for those areas, because that third zone, that periphery zone that we had originally talked about, came off the table. And like I said, some of the owners of these properties participated and submitted testimony for that. But yeah, there's no project waiting in the wings. We haven't met with anybody. It's nothing that specific.
Another thing I heard people raising is concern that a developer will come in with poor quality, low income housing. Does that fit with a commercial development district?
Good.
Poor quality is a word,
That's what I heard.
yeah, we have a building code and there's a lot in the planned commercial development district. It's a master plan. It gives you a lot of control over the design.
And architectural and.
Yes.
It
And
wasn't,
all of the things that you'd look for in the high quality housing types that people would want to see, like access to open space, amenities for tenants, whatever. I mean, you have control of that through the master plan process. Because we have more than 10% affordable housing in East Windsor, we're not subject to H-30G, which means you
They
have
have
the
a right.
control, right? So we can't control what people rent it for. And obviously, we don't have the ability to control the operation once it's in place, but you have a lot of control over the siting of
amenities
this.
and the look and the feel of the development.
But in making a decision like a zone change or a text amendment, the thing you're doing now, you're acting in what's called the legislative capacity. You have extreme discretion. You consider things which are referred to as a comprehensive plan, which is zoning regulations and a zoning map, and you make a decision based upon that. But you're not making a decision about a text amendment or a zone change based upon a previous application, because you're acting in a different capacity than when you're approving a special permit.
It's a conceptual.
You have the discretion because you're sort of looking at the vision of the zoning regs, the vision of the zoning map, the vision of the POCD, and you're deciding whether or not it fits. Even a special permit, those are uses which are expressly allowed in the regs. You can deny it if you can find something in the regulations that it ties to it, but if you don't like it, but it's a special permit, you can't deny it for that. But a legislative decision like a zone change, which would be the master plan, or a text amendment like you're doing now, you have more discretion. And so that was the trade-off, right? We're providing more flexibility to the developer through the PCD because you're getting much more control over the development, the end product. Special permit requirements right now for housing or any.
Basically, you're right, if you, the regs.
Right. You can't say, we don't like that. We want it to look this way. It's not how the special permit process works. So we're trying to create a trade-off through creating this district as a whole.
So what's the benefit to the town for this zone change?
The text amendment.
Sorry, text, right.
Well,
That's what everybody's thinking out there.
we don't know the benefit because there's no projects. Again, this just changes eligibility. And the intent is if we want higher quality developments that have a mix of uses that are more vibrant because they incorporate larger commercial spaces, smaller commercial spaces, housing, professional office, whatever. If you want to create some of that vibrancy and some of that synergy, things that you're seeing in Windsor Locks and other areas where you have a mix of uses, you need to create regulations that allow the types of developments that people are seeing. They need to make them possible. Most of our reg sections don't even allow multiple principal uses on the same lot.
Yeah.
Something like Sophia's Plaza, where you have detached buildings and multiple things here, there, and everywhere. Most zones of the regs wouldn't allow that now. So we need to be more forward thinking in how these things come forward. And so this creates a mechanism, but doesn't actually allow any.
So clarify for me then the claim of if we do it to this area, we're bound to do it to another applicant that comes from anywhere else in town.
You're not.
That's not my understanding at all.
No.
But every application is case by case, and just because we approve something somewhere, we are not legally bound. It's not case law.
No.
Anyone else have any other questions?
I have one question.
Yes.
All right, so from listening to some of this conversation, correct me if I'm wrong, but by approving this text amendment and creating an eligibility, we'd be almost inviting more developers to make or to put applications in front of us to approve. So it's more of an invitation to explore options
Gives more
than
options.
anything.
To folks. And one of the outcomes, if you sought eligibility and got it and created a master plan, there's two paths, but you could get something that is used to market, right? So you can match uses with what the concept has been approved for. And then it's a smoother, another, one last public hearing to put in the details. So it was really meant to foster interest in economic development for the town.
And negotiation.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, that's, the important things to me is that, again, we're not bound to do this anywhere else. And that we, this doesn't give anything by right, that it's just gives them the opportunity to ask for more things, but nothing is as of right. Okay, if nobody else has anything else, I guess I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Allow any more comment?
I'll allow it.
I want to say I appreciate hearing that they need to ask for zoning change when they come in for their overlay. And that's something I heard very clearly. There has to be a zoning change because this is very unusual, because normally you do a district on a zone. So if you have a commercial district, you do the special, a commercial zone, you do the special district to require upgraded stuff, right? That's what you're all talking about, improvements. But this is now a district on not a commercial zone, but it's on potentially residential other zones. So as long as they have to come in for a zone change with their application, good with it, no problem. I don't know if you want to make sure that's in the regs clearly or whatever, but that's good. That's a whole different process that requires a public hearing and not a zone change. So I want to just thank you for that clarification.
I'll be quick about it. I just saw on the internet that 6 members of the East Windsor Development Team, Ruth, you're one of them. I just would be interested in everybody taking a look at what that development team is, what it does, what it meets, who it reports to, what kind of minutes are taken, and what goes on there. I don't know.
I can tell you it's ad hoc. So if the development, I think we have a land use committee with folks from different departments. The last meeting we had, if you remember, Jim Cormier had come in with some multifamily housing on North Road. And he met with WPCA and the planning department, engineering, and we all sit around the table and try to listen and point out hurdles that developers will have to consider. And that was a long time ago. And you won't see what he was hoping to do out there. I don't think he's going to do anything in larger parts, as he discovered he doesn't have a lot to work with out there. Because it's so wet.
I do have a comment.
Wait, go ahead, Wayne.
So improving this will there'll still be a stopgap for somebody wanting to come in and maybe put something in we don't care for as a town by coming to the PZA, right? And if a developer comes in and starts a multi-housing project, we lose control of it at that point, right? If HUD gets involved, we don't, okay. That's what happened with the Mill Pond project.
Once you reach a town that doesn't have 10% of its total housing units deed restricted as affordable is subject to an 8-30G, that's what it's referred to, which basically means developers don't need to meet zoning regulations if they're developing affordable housing. Mill Pond qualifies as that, but once it was constructed, it tipped the scale. So we're at 11.7 or so, which means now the town has control over all housing developments. So probably 95% of the towns in Connecticut aren't in the position that East Windsor is in.
Okay, I think that's just something to.
We got plenty of affordable housing.
Okay. Mr. Baker.
Thanks. I just wanted to reiterate what a number of the other speakers have said, that, you guys do a great job. And I know that, and I'd also like to reiterate and kind of point out the fact that what many of you brought up was that Warehouse Point study was multiple years. It was exhaustive. It had a ton of input from both businesses and residents in the Warehouse Point district. And I felt it was very inclusive. And this plan and what you're trying to do, I think, is building on that and is in complete line with that and the P O C D for that area. I think it's been a great conversation tonight as far as, input from other people. But I would just like to, I guess, close by saying everybody should read the Warehouse Point study. If you're interested in what's going on in Warehouse Point, and certainly everybody should be, there's a lot of good information there, and it kind of gives you an idea of, why the town is doing this change and other changes like it. It's not just out of the blue, and it's not for a developer. It's, that Warehouse Point study was that mainly to try to make it easier for both residents and businesses to, invest in their property, invest in what's there, and revitalize that area looking forward to the future, because it is a transit-oriented district, and there's many other, things that exist there that we could take better advantage of. So I support this, and I think the back and forth and the modifications to allay people's concerns are great. And thank you all for everything you do.
Yes, Mr. Anderson.
Sorry. I think it's very important to look at the affordable housing concept, state regulation. It's all well and good. And so we're almost 12%, which puts us in a good spot. However, as you add residential housing, that percentage changes. Develop enough, and now you don't have 10% anymore. Because you didn't add any more of that, you just added more regular. But that could have a long-term impact that always has to be looked at overall. Do we want this? Because eventually you may be in a different spot than you are now. Thank you.
How often is it looked at, the percentage wise, and how often is it calculated? Annually or
An annual.
annual calculation?
And we did like a back of the napkin, okay, because we have the same question that Mr. Anderson brought up, like, what would, what happens? Because we're at about 14% now, and what would happen?
How many houses would it take? Okay, all right, that's a better number.
It's out the scale, yeah.
And where are we at?
Top
I mean,
of my-
are we talking hundreds or thousands?
I can
Hold
come
on.
back. You got it?
Keep pulling it up.
So, according to the most recently updated numbers for 23, there are just over 5,000 total units of housing here. So they're saying we're at 13.1%. And that's made up of several different types of, and it's really not just affordable housing. Okay, so FHA mortgages qualify. That's considered an assisted housing type. So there's a lot of different types of housing and different people that are receiving assistance. It's not, and very frequently has nothing to do with HUD and Section 8 or that type. So 10% would put us at 534 units.
Okay.
So you're talking, I don't know, I'm not good at that math, but you're not talking a dozen, talking probably a couple hundred units that would need to be added before you'd get even close to the 10%. And I think the way Mill Pond is structured, if those restrictions don't go away, others, it's a 40-year restriction. The affordable housing statute was put in place in the 70s. So there's a lot of projects in town, in different towns that are coming off the books because the 40-year restriction expires. So the majority of our units
A permanent.
are permanent.
Yeah.
So this is not something that's going to change with one development unless it was
Massive.
massive.
Chris Dale, do you have your hand raised?
So,
Oh,
You have to unmute him.
you're fine. Thank you. Oh, I'm, okay, that's the cursor is a hand. I saw a hand there.
Told you to mute us again.
Okay. Okay.
You let everybody speak.
Yes, Stan.
I got one more in sitting and attending planning and zoning meetings when the Newberry Road Village had come about, and I was really amazed. Obviously, they had the person that had the site development plan. Developer showed up with a secretary assistant. There was a fleet alert. I could not imagine what it costs a developer, but if there's money, the developer will show up for it. I mean, to listen to it, and then all of a sudden it was turtle crossing. They're building tunnels for the turtles, if I remember correctly, the sidewalks go up. You know, it just behooves me sometimes the amount of length that a developer will go through to get housing in, whether it's affordable, age restricted, or whatever. You may end up finding it age restricted, but it just is amazing the amount of hoops that they'll jump through to get there. It's my only comment. Thank you.
Okay. We're all good? I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing on application PZ 2024-12. The town of East Windsor's request for a text amendment to zoning regulation for planned commercial development district. And
We have a motion to close the public hearing. Do we have a second?
second,
By Stacy. Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Public hearing is closed. Well, I mean, I like to say, I'm comfortable due to the fact that nothing is as of right, nothing is legally binding, nothing, this is just the very first step in allowing people to come ask, versus them not being.
yeah, I see it as it's an opening to an iterative process for a discussion.
And I like the addition of all the architectural requirements, which is something that, we can't get in at a special permit hearing. So it's
I
nice
think
to,
we've had a hard time attracting developers to Warehouse Point, so any help we can get in getting someone to come forward to just open a discussion. Good.
so anybody have anything else they want to add? All right, then I'll entertain a motion on this application.
I'll make a motion to approve PZ 2024 text amendment to section 817 planned commercial development district as proposed in the September 5th, 2024 revisions, finding that the proposed amendments are in alignment with the commercial development strategies outlined in the 2016 Plan of Conservation and Development, specifically to promote transit-oriented development and/or village zoning in Warehouse Point.
We have a motion to approve the text amendment. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Stacy. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Ruth, I have a copy that other.
Okay. We have no new public hearings, no old business, no new business. So under other business, we have our POCD update and workshop schedule.
It's okay. I can see the parcels.
Yeah, that one. Thank you very much.
I'm okay.
Okay.
We studied this a couple times already.
We sent out a survey to majority of businesses in town, but like 250. 250. To date, we have received back about 44, 45. So we're gonna be tallying up what they're saying. I mean, right now, something that sticks to mind just from flipping through it is, why'd you choose East Windsor? Is proximity to 91 and availability of buildings. Those are the top two reasons. There are other questions on there, but I just flipped through them really quick so I can give you a soundbite. On October 8th, during our regular meeting here, we're going to be joined by the Agricultural Commission to host a farmers listening session to inform the POCD. So it's an opportunity for the farmers to come and talk about what they're hopeful for, what they're worried about, and just so that we can get them represented in that way.
I would ask if we could probably keep the agenda light that night because it's going to be,
Yes.
The room's gonna be
and we
packed.
may end up needing to go
Yeah.
back to the high school.
Yes.
Yeah,
I think.
okay.
This last meeting we had, we did with the farmers, this room was full. There was 100 people there,
Wow.
Okay.
at least. Oh,
With the farm regs.
farm regs, yeah.
Well, there's nothing
Yeah.
proposed here. This is just,
Yes,
It's-
yeah.
You're there.
Okay.
You're there, concern. And we've asked them to let us know. Their
Okay, well, we have enough time to get an idea, but I'd just like
Yeah,
to
it's.
see if we can keep this agenda light.
Okay, yep, that's fair. We're gonna begin drafting the existing conditions section of the regulations, the of the P O C D rather,
That described it.
update that, yeah, as it is today. And we have, we need to schedule a workshop to go over all the survey results, the business survey, what we learned from the farmers listening session, what we have drafted for the current conditions, and solicit input, the vision. So that would
that'd
be
an
like, I would
additional
have
date
nothing, yeah, and I'm
outside of our
December 10th.
December 10th.
And then we would dedicate the whole meeting to that, which we should do at someplace comfortable, like the high school.
I mean, that is a scheduled meeting night,
It
so
is,
Yeah.
it is. So. I mean,
are we obligated to have anything else on the agenda at all? If somebody comes with an application,
unless
next
that,
meeting-
yeah, unless there's a time frame issue, but no.
Okay.
Yeah.
You like library.
Yeah.
So this is gonna be a public forum then to discuss everything, not just.
Yes, yes, yep. So we'd be sharing our information and getting input from folks. And so if we can, December 10th works. I think I have an opportunity to get that into the next 5 voice.
Okay.
Be quick with that.
I mean, I don't have a conflict. I plan to be here for that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's really all I had. I just want to make sure we could schedule the workshops and let you know where we're at with bringing in information.
I'll check my work. I know I have a couple work trips. And I'll email.
Okay, I check that.
They're a little bit in flux too, so
Please repeat that date.
December 10th.
December 10th.
On
October 8th is
October
easier.
8th is the farmers listening session.
Okay. October 8th.
So we have no correspondence, no business meeting, no need for an executive session. So does anyone have anything else they'd like to talk about? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
A second.
We have a motion and a second. Call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned at 7:58.